welcome to this afternoon and this wonderful, profound work that we are doing as part of Illuman and the path to masculine healing. So my name is Geno Gallegos. You can call me Geno. I've been a mind, body, health, wellness aficionado for many years now. And I've been a student of yoga, not because I think I'm a yogi or some sort of guru, but I do it for my own sanity, in my own health, in my own stress management, and my own transformation. It's been a remarkable path. So I'm here in my man cave at home, and I thought I would share with you brothers this wonderful practice that is helping so many of us across the world, and so many brothers in Illuman who are part of this transformative work, and really using yoga as a healing tool, mind, body, spirit, for anything that we encounter in life, including racism, something as profoundly hurtful and traumatic as racism is. So I have my computer set up, and I have quite a bit of notes from this past week as I've been preparing for this. So I'll be referring to some of my notes as well. So this is going to be a lot of me speaking, and I'm asking you to do the breath work. And breath work is simply pranayama. So I really want to just acknowledge that in Illuman, in this specific Solarized 2020, there are 545 men from around the world. So shout outs and a namaste to Italy, Japan, Lebanon, Netherlands, Austria, Portugal, Ireland, Scotland, Canada, Philippines, Germany, Australia, Trinidad, England, France, Switzerland, Germany, Czech Republic, New Zealand, and of course the United States. And I'm coming to you from Albuquerque, New Mexico, and we acknowledge with great respect and love and appreciation the First Nations, the tribal communities that have been part of New Mexico's long history, and who's on holy ground and sacred ground we stand, which includes the Navajo Dene people, the Jemez Pueblo, Isleta, Santo Domingo, Isleta, the Apache, the Hickory Apache, the Mescaleto Apache down south, and all the other Pueblos, all the profound healing and work. And it is so good to affirm that the Native peoples are alive and well and still leading all of us in this healing work. And as we all know, in Illuman, those of us who have completed the men's rites of passage, that the sacred ceremonies and inspiration that First Nations peoples have shared and their example have inspired us greatly and continue to do so. So we just deeply acknowledge that. And, you know, with all that's been going on in the world and the awakening in regards to how the path to masculine healing really does need to include us addressing, as men, addressing the impact of racism has had on all of us, in every color and in every generation for the past 400, 500 years within the US and around the world in other contexts. Racism has definitely caused a lot of damage and continues to do so, but we are men of healing, and we grab on to tools of healing, and yoga is just one of many, but it's one path that has provided me with so much inspiration, and I want to share that with you. So this, the icon that you can see, I'm bringing into this yoga practice, this discussion, this chat that we're having today. This is artwork that was given to Richard Rohr from the Czech brothers. and we thank them for their generosity and for Richard for letting us use it. But I want to incorporate this as you stand there in your place and you're grounding your feet with a strong, long spine and an open heart. I want you just to stand there and breathe in a way that's comfortable for you. And I want to just point out a couple of beautiful, what I find very yogic inspiration in this icon. So, of course, we have the Christ figure. And as Richard Rohr points out so often, there's a difference between Jesus and Christ. Jesus was the man, much like you and I, who walked through this world on this very sacred path. And he became the Christ over the course of his lifetime, the cosmic Christ, which includes all things. All things are sacred. Every color is sacred. Created things and the blank space between things are interconnected in a sacred web of life. And this icon really provides some inspiration for our yoga practice today. First, you can see the Christ figure, the awakened Christ. You see that I'm using a bamboo stick, but you can see his feet are still nailed to the cross in the fact that we as men are still connected to the pain of the world, much like racism. We are called to stay in touch, much like in the Beatitudes, with the pain of the world, to keep us real and humble and always growing, always illuminating, always sharing the light within in a way that heals, in a non-violent, loving, healing way. We see the divine feminine within his thigh. That is a feminine face, and much like Joel Blanc, I believe, shared yesterday in the teaching how one native story he heard was that a bird needs both wings to fly, right? And we, in Illuman, as you practice yoga, we need both of our legs optimally to stand straight, strong, and firm. And in our work as men, we know that, if you raise your hands, you can even cross them if you like. But even that is that divine DNA of masculine and feminine. You can switch arms if you like, the other way. That you actually need to acknowledge that divine DNA of masculine and feminine in order to stand up. And as men on this path, as humans on this path, we don't need to crawl before anyone. We don't need to run. We can stand and walk humbly on this earth. That's the call. We see, of course, that he's the Christ figure is naked. That's who we are as well. We try to come to this work undefended, with our hearts and our full presence, our mistakes, our joys, our sorrows, our hopes, our dreams, our story, that which we know and that which we will never understand. We bring our whole selves to this work. And here we see some of the archetypes. We see the prophets of Black Lives Matter, the prophets of the Me Too movement, those prophets that are calling to us that there is more work to be done. There is more healing to do. And so we bow deeply to the prophets. And, as yoga, the issues are in the tissues. That's not just a bumper sticker, but the issues are in the tissues. And if you can do this as well, brothers, just gently tap your heart. Just some really simple yoga as we open up the heart chakra, the center. And you can even take a deep breath and then breathe it to your right. Again, that we listen to the voices of the prophets whether it's Jesus or Buddha, Muhammad, the great creator, the divine voice, that we become men who are courageous enough to listen to the prophets. We have the prodigal son, the prodigal daughter, that which in us, which has made mistakes, which has thrown away the best parts of ourselves at times, which have passed on pain to others, and yet we can make amends. We can change. We can be open to change. We can be open to transformation and living amends. One of the key things that I believe that yoga offers, it's a way for us as men to make amends to ourselves for all the times that we have been unconscious, all the times when we have ignored our own body's cries for help, and when we have ignored the other bodies, those that we consider others and different, when we have ignored their cries for help. Practicing yoga becomes a way on this magnificent life-changing path to make living amends. How can I learn the lesson? I've come to believe that wisdom is learning the lessons from our pain, and sharing them with others. I've come to believe that a whole sacred masculinity requires acknowledging our dreams and our hopes, those things we've done well. Yes, let's acknowledge them. And let's acknowledge the places where we've messed up profoundly, our mistakes, and where we can make living amends to do better. This other great, beautiful archetype that I really think speaks to the conversation we're having this week is that biblical person fighting with the angel. What I never realized until today, this weekend, is that you see it's Jacob's ladder, I believe, but there's the ladder, right? And as men and women in this society, we're taught to compete with each other. And as boys, we compete. Who's going to be at the top of the ladder and who's going to be at the bottom, right? And we gain those awarenesses, and racism keeps a few at the top, very few, and the vast majority at the bottom. And yet we breathe into this. And we fight with that recognition. We know we're called to something better. We know we're called outside of our comfort zone. We know that we are called to contemplation and action. And each of you, everybody on this call right here, everybody who's doing this work, has to deeply hear the call to action, to ignore the cynical voices. Nah, you can't do that. The snarky. Social media is full of snarky voices. To ignore those voices that will keep us obsessed with the ladder, not willing to let go, even though our better angels within us and among us call us to that work, to let go of those toys, those games, which bring us no joy. And that's the healing work of yoga. The other archetype that I want to point out is the Good Samaritan. And once again, that's the issues are in the tissues, it's actions of healing. I've learned that delusion is believing a lie. Delusion is believing a lie. And the lie that, the systematic lie that we're all taught, socialized into, is the fact that the ladder exists and that's a pyramid, those on top and those on bottom. But what yoga does, what so many of the First Nations teaching does, is invite us into the sacred circle. The circle where we stand shoulder to, where none of us are above or below. Where shoulder to shoulder, we can take a full cycle Deep breath in and deep breath out. Let's do that twice more. Just a deep breath in and a deep breath out. Which one of these archetypes is calling to you? A deep breath in and a deep breath out. And feel free as we have this discussion to do your own practice, to move the breath in and out of your own body. Because this is yoga too. We're informing the mind and the breath and the body. And of course, the Christ figure is naked with the crown of thorns still showing his wounds. That even within our physical genitalia, that too becomes something that we offer up. Our sexuality, our sensuality, our spirituality. How do we enjoy our senses? Sight, smell, touch, taste. How do we enjoy those senses? How do we express our sexuality in a healthy way that is coming out of love and compassion and mutuality and consent? Our spirituality. How do we, in Illuman, we strive to honor all the wisdom traditions of the world. So absolutely, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, the First Nations folks, Buddhism, Jainism, all the religious wisdoms of the world, we look and we honor. How can we pull from them and find more inspiration to stay on this path, more reasons why we are connected. And all of those paths we come to believe is part of the cosmic Christ. I was talking earlier about how delusion is believing a lie, and the lie of racism, that one race is better than the other, and that there is a pyramid. That's when we are delusional. And so many of us are steeped in delusional thinking, habits and norms that are systemically taught to us, socialized, a way of seeing and living in the world that is not what Christ calls us to do, and to let go of that. In sociology, they talk about individual behavior as a reflection of larger social forces. Individual experiences, like a crucifixion, is a reflection of larger social forces. So throughout history, and even in 2020, individual behavior is a reflection of larger social forces. So we're called to look beneath the exterior, beneath the surface of things, and to realize so many of our Black, brown brothers and sisters, their individual experiences of pain, of anguish, of grief, of generations of grief, is a reflection of larger social forces. And our challenge as men in 2020, and in Illuman, and in so many other beautiful non-violent groups, is to do the work of both healing the micro, that individual hurt, and the macro, that systemic hurt. We get to be full, wholehearted men who've made mistakes, who are willing to acknowledge our wounds, who are willing to have them offered up for healing, and to use that sacred breath. Breathe with me. Inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. I've heard over the past couple of days how racism is in the air that we breathe. And yet we practice yoga, and yoga talks about the breath. So we get to contemplate in this one, air and breath. Although Racism and systemic racism may be in the air, in those social norms that we are part of, in our economic, educational, judicial, religious systems, etc. How do we acknowledge that that may be in the air, but we get the opportunity to take a yogic breath and to be present as a healing force in this time? And I want you to contemplate that breath, because in yoga, the breath is a literal tool of awakening, and it's a metaphorical tool of awakening. Another yogic tool that I want to, and you can do this, let's honor the 4 directions, and I talk about gently tapping your heart. I happen to be facing north right now. I want to face north, we'll face east, south, and west. And wherever you are, you can find the north, but if not, just go with me. So as we gently tap, we ask for, your body's a drum, the issues are in the tissues. As we gently tap, we call forth the best in ourselves, in your own individual family, all the generations that have preceded you, in our animal brothers and sisters, in the trees, in the flowers, every drop of rain, every piece of dust, every fish that swims in the ocean, every cloud. We breathe in the power of the north. And you can breathe in that sacred name of a sacred name that resonates with your walk and your path. Let's turn to the east or another direction. And continue gently tapping and breathing in. Calling in the power of the east, of new beginnings, of wonderful beginnings, of invention, of the imagination used to heal, not to destroy. You breathe that in. And then I would turn south and breathe into the south direction. And I'm going to face the camera, but even breathing in towards the south, that wild one who is unafraid to speak the truth, who doesn't care about reputation or resume, who doesn't care about holding on to things, that wild one, that prophetic voice. We breathe into that as well. Now let's turn to the fourth direction, which is the west. And we breathe in the power of the west, the sunsets, the sacred darkness, the oh holy night. You know, on Christmas Eve, we sing songs of oh holy night, because the night brings holiness. It is part of it. And then you can gently stop that tapping and shake it out. And once again, you can just move in a way that honors the yoga that you need to be doing. You can open your hearts and breathe it in. And we thank Father Sky. We thank Mother Earth. We thank that which is deep within us. Those additional 3 directions. So another great thing that I want to share with you, keep doing your own yogic practice. I thank you for being inventive. I'm a visual learner, and I need to have physicality as many men do, which is why yoga, the active practice of asana, has been really good for me to realize that the issues are in the tissues. But I also have this hula hoop. So I want to layer this. So stay with me, brothers. I know this is asking something. Use your imagination. But if you can see that sacred circle, that sacred hoop, as our tribal elders, as our native elders, that sacred hoop of life, everything belongs in that sacred, incomprehensible, paradoxical, wonderful, intense truth that everything belongs. Send your breath into the hoop. Breathe with me. And send your breath into the hoop. Now inhale from the hoop. And exhale. And what I want to do is show this. As you keep breathing, the colors on this hula hoop are red, silver, and black. Let me see if I can hold this up to the camera. It's red, silver, and black. We are socialized to think about the colors of a rainbow. Think of a rainbow. Now, did the rainbow that you just think about include black and brown in it? I know when I think of a rainbow before doing this work, the color black and the color brown of the very skin I have on did not come into my consciousness as part of the rainbow. And yet, brothers, light is more than just white and silver and gold. Those are beautiful and sacred colors. And so is every other color. So it belongs. It is sacred. It is holy. It is true. So that is also, for me, a yogic insight, is that there are colors that my eyes can perceive, the colors of your average rainbow, but we've been socialized so many times to think that the darker colors are not part of the rainbow, and yet they are. We get to rescue them. We get to include them in that sacred hoop, in that cosmic Christ, in the awakened Buddha, in the holy way of healing that all wisdom traditions teach us. And I've come to believe ever more so that Christ himself is willing to stand shoulder to shoulder with anybody in that group. Is willing to stand shoulder to shoulder with anyone. That takes a humility that is beyond my comprehension, that tickles my heart and gives me hope. Let's breathe again. Breathe it in and breathe it out. Breathe it in and breathe it out. Part of our work, if you continue to breathe, is we are reading some books. We're reading as part of the Great Radical Race read. My Grandmother's Hands. We are reading Stamped from the Beginning, which is powerful. All of these are. The New Jim Crow, mind-blowing. The Radical Dharma, thank you, Reverend Angel Kyoto Williams. And When They Call You a Terrorist. All of this, too, is yogic work. Breathe. As I was reading some of these books, great grief and despair were passing through when I realized the system and how big interlocking this system is. And the yogic insight that I had, that I want to share with you, is chattel slavery. That term, the best way I can describe it is chattel slavery is not just an indentured servitude that this person owes me 4 or 5 years of work as a contract and then is free. But chattel slavery really is and was that I, quote unquote, own another human being, all of their sperm and all of her eggs for perpetuity. That's the chattel slavery mentality that in order to believe that oneself, one would have to deny their own humanity. That is a great and profound wound that I'm coming to believe we are dealing with still. And it's a great and profound wounding upon others when those beliefs are inflicted upon another set of human beings, generation after generation. Let's breathe it in. And what I'm realizing in this conversation this weekend that we're having in Solarized 2020 is that chattel slavery, brothers, was literally the belief, I'm coming to understand, that a slave owner can think, I own your very breath. So when somebody says, I can't breathe, to think chattel slavery and that mentality is I own everything about you, including your very breath. Breathe. And what yoga and this nonviolent path teaches us is that we never interrupt the breath. The breath is a metaphor for the divine and for spirit, and that we can never own the breath. So once again, this yogic work is part of this deep healing that we must have, that we must confront and grapple with these systems that promote ways of thinking and living that would hinder the breath and hinder a nonviolent life. We want to promote communities of peace, and we need the emotional sobriety to do that. Let's just take a communal breath. Inhale. Take it all in. And exhale it. One more time. Two more times. Inhale. That yoga invites emotional sobriety. Exhale. And inhale. And exhale. Keep on with your yogic practice and your breath. In Illuman and in so many circles of recovery and healing around the world, we learn to break some very important rules. The rules that we have been taught that keep us bound in pain, that stop the breath, stop the divine breath. We've been taught, don't talk, don't trust, don't feel. I'm going to say them again. Keep reading, please. Don't talk. We're never talking about the things that are really going on. Don't trust. Don't trust women, and certainly don't trust men. And don't feel. Stay up here in the head, right? We get to stay up in the head, and everything below the head gets very minimal, if any attention. And that in ways that are positive. And yet, what yoga invites us to do is to integrate all of that. Mind, body, spirit. That we create these circles, these conversations, where men can come together and break the rules. To talk, to speak from the heart. To trust another brother. And to feel, to come to know the vastness of our emotions, to know what the emotions are. We're not denying them, we're not stuffing them, but that we don't have to be enslaved by our emotions. We don't have to let our rage take us into a way that doesn't serve our highest good. That our depression and despair does not keep us paralyzed in ways that we cannot function. So we learn in these circles and these kind of conversations, and with this breath, breathe again, that we can talk, we can trust, and we can feel. As you keep breathing, one of our touchstones in Illuman is that we speak from the heart. We listen from the heart. And with yoga and this conversation taking place this weekend, we are challenged to see from the heart, that we can see the sacred hope. Everything belongs. That we can see that the universe, the divine rainbow, has darkness in it, and it's a beloved color. All the colors, those that we can perceive and those that we can't perceive. We see ourselves, that reflection in the mirror, with compassion. We can see somebody who looks different than us and look beneath the surface. We are men who are challenged to see from the heart. Yoga is a powerful wisdom tradition that can be used as a blueprint for healing. It can inform my transformation in Illuman. It is founded on non-violence. And non-violence doesn't mean that we tolerate the intolerable. If I'm in a pose, let's do moon pose. Together, firm and relaxed. Hands overhead, we go to the right. I want to go to the place of sensation, but I'm not looking for pain. We don't want to cause pain. So we can tolerate sensation and growth, but we don't have to tolerate pain and anguish. Let that go, exhale, and keep breathing. And non-violence is, as Gandhi would say, it's older than the hills, it's older than the dust, meaning, in my understanding, that Earth itself is not violent. It's intense. There are seasons and there are eons of profound shifts and change, but it is not coming from a hierarchical, that ladder, that pain ladder of who's on top and who's on bottom. And we as men are called to operate in true harmony with the universe in a non-violent way. Our greatest call is that we can deeply acknowledge our common humanity with everybody on the planet, and our actions would reflect this belief. I'll say that again. We can come to the point where we can deeply acknowledge our common humanity with everyone on the planet, and our actions reflect this belief. That is the call to the one unifying heartbeat that Christ offers. That one unifying heartbeat that Christ offers. There's in reading all of these books sometimes, it's easy to look at the stats and get overwhelmed. We can turn on the news, we can tap into social media and become overwhelmed and disillusioned by the pain, the anguish, the systems. And yet, as we use the teachings of Illuman and wisdom traditions like yoga, as we use them on a daily, regular basis, we move from disillusionment to men of enchantment. Moving from disillusionment, we can't afford to be in despair. That's what the system wants us to do. We must resist that temptation to camp out and live in disillusionment and move into enchantment, into that illumination, being able to see a world that is, yes, in profound pain, and yet we can call upon those tools of healing racism and any other thing that life may present us with. We only have a few minutes, 15 minutes left, but I wanted to share with you, keep reading. Reverend Angel Kyoto Williams, she offered in one of her teachings the metaphor of sky, S-K-Y. And of course, The Franciscans believe in brother, sun, sister, moon. Many native traditions talk about Father Sky and Mother Earth. Let's reach our hands to the sky and allow your feet to come into contact through the concrete floor, whatever floor you happen to be on, to the center of the earth. So as we are a bridge for that healing connection between Father Sky, do that for as long as you feel comfortable. Angel Kyoto Williams, Reverend Angel Kyoto, talked about S in Sky. S stands for self-care. Self-care, that we care for each other. We care for ourselves. That we rest when we need to rest. That hungry, angry, lonely, tired. When we're hungry for nutritional food, we do that. When we're hungry for heart-to-heart inspiration and healing circles, we do that. We tap into those wisdom traditions. When we're angry, of course, as one wonderful elder said, when you're really angry or feeling like you're full of rage, go camp in the wilderness for 4 days. Fast for 4 days. Get connected and grounded into the earth. That's a wonderful tradition, a healing tradition. Listen, get calm first, even if it takes 4 days in the wilderness to do it. Get calm, grounded first. Lonely, we talk with each other. We speak from the heart. We go to a recovery group. We go to a online inspirational session of something that means we read something profound. And when we're tired, we rest. That's part of self-care. But she said, Sky, self-care. K is kindness. Brothers, that's also part of this work, is just kindness. To be kind to one another, regardless of the external packaging. Be kind to ourselves, even when our old racist thinking kicks in. You know what's that? Thank you very much. Let the voice of kindness speak instead. That's the voice we want to listen to. The voice of kindness. And the why, I just love this next, the why, according to Angel Kyoto Williams, Reverend Angel, the why is that yearning. That even you, brothers, who are on this group and in this conversation, in all these healing circles across the globe, we're yearning for something better. We're yearning to believe in something greater. We're yearning to believe the deepest parts of our hearts, of our humanity, that somehow we can rise, we can stand, we can breathe together as brothers and sisters, shoulder to shoulder, across the generations, across time and space. Breathe again, brothers. Breathe with me. Inhale and exhale. And we send that sacred breath to all people and all places. And yes, across time and space, in that big divine oneness that can potentially heal the past and the future. Beyond time and space, something that big, that healing, that's what we need to believe in and come together in these kind of circles. Oh my gosh, so the last thing is to come to believe, when I look at those, that word sky, self-care, kindness, and yearning, what that boils down to me in that conversation with the cosmic Christ, the Buddha, the awakened one, creator, whatever name that comes to your mind and heart, I honor. But in the Christian tradition, as you know, when Jesus rose from the dead and was the Christ, rose from the Christ, it's that first ray of light, that that just comes to my mind. That ray of light that includes everything, that includes every color that we can imagine and those we can't even perceive with our regular human eye. And it's that light, that sacred light, that infinite healing light, that the Christ resurrection healing light only multiplies over all creation. Read that with me, brothers. That the Christ resurrection healing light only multiplies over all creation. Say that with me if you can. The Christ resurrection healing light only multiplies over all creation. Over creation itself, over the relationships between people, places, and things, the circumstances that we find ourselves, the zig, the zagging in my mind, your mind, our communities, our nation, our world, previous generations and past, that Christ resurrection healing light only multiplies over all creation. That's, to me, is yogic as we can get in today's conversation. To believe and hope in something that is that great, that much powerful, that healing. Let's see. Last, I had to my little note real quick. The last prayer that I want to leave with you is reminding you of how beloved you are, how much life loves you, how much life loves you, and life including whatever is sacred to you. That you and I and we are here doing this work. Life is profoundly, passionately, compassionately in love with you. And that every time you blink your eyes, that the universe whispers, beloved, beloved, beloved. That even in that oh holy night of a slow moving blinking eye is a reminder that everything belongs. That yes, we may be in a system that seems like it's as powerful as the air we breathe, and yet the sacred breath has also been reminding us from the first moment we blinked our eyes to the very last moment when we close our eyes, that you, that I, all creation is beloved, beloved, beloved. There's a book. I'll end with this quote. If you have not read this book, Meditations from the Mat by Rolf Gates and Katrina Keinson, Meditations from the Mat, it's profound. He has a wonderful story of both his recovery in AA, his growing up as an African-American boy, young man in Massachusetts, his time in the military service, and his discovery of yoga. It's a wonderful book of transformation and awakening. I'm going to close with this reading from him as you do your last set of divine breathing. Let's see, this is from page 242. 242. He says, he's quoting Harriet Tubman, another wonderful prophetic voice leader And she says, I had crossed the line and I was free, but there was no one there to welcome me to the land of freedom. I was a stranger in a strange land. And Ralph writes, the final niyama is surrender to God. Surrender flows naturally from the work that we do and on the other yamas and niyamas. Most of us first encounter it on the yoga mat in the form of a higher sense of purpose. We may have no idea what the yamas and niyamas are, but we find that our time spent on the yoga mat has changed our perspective. Many of the concerns we shared with our co-workers, family, and friends simply vanish as our yoga practice gives rise to a new set of priorities. We find, brothers, that we have crossed the line and are now living in a new land. But there is no one there to welcome us. Our friends or partners may laugh and think this new obsession is just a phase. We are strangers in a strange land. But the sense of dislocation is temporary. Our roots are in new soil, and over time, a new life will grow up around us. Eventually, Harriet Tubman guided over 300 slaves to freedom and spent the remaining 60 years of her life helping freed slaves. In doing so, she demonstrated how we might proceed in this new land we find ourselves in, and what true surrender to God might look like. That which is highest and best in me acknowledges and honors and bows to that which is highest in me. Namaste.